Alabama has had a lot of good quarterbacks over the years, but there's one guy that seemingly everyone always forgets about. Blake Sims was the starting quarterback at Alabama in 2014 and actually set a record for passing yards in a season at that time, but besides that 1 year, how did he become a star to begin with, and what happened to him after his time at the Tide? What if I told you that he took up an acting career and got to play football all around the world and is enjoying life? Today we'll talk about the rise and fall of Blake Sims and where he is now. But first, be sure to give the video a like if you want to support the channel, subscribe if you're new, suggest another player I should do a video like this on, and stay until the end and turn on post notifications. Now let's get started and talk about what happened to Blake Sims. So before Blake Sims was a one-year quarterback at Alabama, he grew up in Gainesville, not Florida, but the Georgia one. He ran track, played basketball, and was a quarterback in football, and was also a local legend. Eventually, he became a high school star and was seen as one of the better athletes in all of high school football in the area. He ended up going to school at Alabama and chose the Tide over 9 other scholarship offers, and that included Arkansas, Georgia, Florida State, and Michigan. According to 24/7 Sports, Sims was a 4-star recruit, the number 23 athlete, and the 305th best player in the class of 2010. He came into Alabama as the 5th-string quarterback and was going to get a chance to play multiple positions. In 2011, he was a running back and actually appeared in 4 games as a freshman. He went for 75 yards in a win over Ole Miss and finished the year with 107 yards rushing total. As a sophomore, he was a running back and a quarterback that was used in trick plays, and he appeared in 8 games, totaling 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. As a junior, it was much of the same, but he was a backup this time to McCarron, and he actually threw for 130 yards and a touchdown in garbage time against Georgia State. Since he had spent more time as a quarterback, he had less carries in the ground game, and he only rushed for 61 yards as his junior, and going into his final year, he would have a decision to make. After being a backup for the last few years, Sims finally thought he was going to have a chance with McCarron graduating, and that he would finally get the opportunity to be the starting quarterback for Alabama. Except things would look a little bit murky for him, as Alabama would go out and nab Florida State transfer Jake Coker, who had a much better arm and was more highly touted, and this was tough. Instead of leaving though, Sims came to Alabama with a purpose, and he wanted to win that starting job, so he hired a private trainer by the name of Ken Mastrell, who had coached quarterbacks like Tajh Boyd, Teddy Bridgewater, and E.J. Manuel. Blake pushed himself harder and harder every day, training down in Florida, and by the end of it, Saban would name him the starting quarterback for their Week 1 matchup. He would start the Tide's opener against West Virginia in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, and he didn't exactly get off to a great start or wow anyone with his numbers, but he was just settling into his new role. He had 2 touchdowns, both against Florida Atlantic and Southern Miss, and he began to hit a stride. In a huge win over Florida, he threw for a then Alabama record 445 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he had finally showed all the potential he had. The following week, Bama went on the road to play Ole Miss in one of the best games of the decade. Ole Miss would have a late pick in the end zone, and they would knock off the Tide and famously throw the goalpost down into the field. After 2 touchdowns and a 1-point win over Arkansas, he threw 3 scores in a shutout over number 21 Texas A&M, and this was a dominating game for the Tide. He would then help them beat both Tennessee and LSU in close games, and Sims was having a pretty good season so far. In a real test against number 1 Mississippi State, he struggled, but he did just enough, and the Tide picked up his slack as they stopped Dak Prescott, won the game, and retook control of the SEC West. He had finished the regular season with 4 touchdowns against number 15 Auburn in the Iron Bowl, but his 3 picks almost cost him the SEC West. They would clinch the division and were set to play Missouri in the SEC Championship game, where he'd throw for almost 300 yards and 2 scores, and the Tide were number 1 in the country and headed to the college football playoff. Sadly, they ran into Ezekiel Elliott and the Ohio State Buckeyes in the first round, and they lost a close game. Sims still had a great year, as he actually broke the single-season passing yards record for Alabama that was previously set by A.J. McCarron. He passed for 3,487 yards and 28 touchdowns, while he was also a second-team All-SEC selection. After the year, he went undrafted in the 2015 NFL Draft, but did get a shot with both the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins, and he'd eventually go north to Canada to play in the CFL. He would also spend some time in Australia before he was signed by the Buccaneers practice squad, but he would never make the active roster, but at least he could say he made an NFL team. After that, he spent time with the Birmingham Iron in the Alliance of American Football, and following that, it seemed that football was over for him and he went a completely different route. Blake actually made his acting debut at Disney as he played in the movie Safety, and he was the quarterback for Florida Atlantic in that movie, and he hopes it may lead to more down the road for him. Honestly, Sims represents what is so good about college football, because he was a guy who waited his turn, worked hard, and then put up big numbers and shined when he got the chance. He got to play football all around the world and got to appear in a really popular movie, so I'd say that Blake Sims' story is a complete success, and I'm really happy for the dude. I enjoyed watching Blake at Alabama, and it's really cool to see how everything has turned out since that 2014 season. If you're an Alabama fan or a college football fan, let me know what you think of Blake's story, and also let me know another player I should take a look at next, as I love doing these What Happened To videos. Before you go, be sure to give the video a like if you want to support the channel, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos, including my What Happened to Bo Scarborough video. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.